Something we haven't done in quite a while in its time, especially for a lot of the bad narratives that have been around the Chicago Bulls, is that it's time to play Facts or Cap, post-Summer League and post-draft edition. So we're going to have a little bit of fun with that because Bulls fans have been throwing takes all over the place since Summer League ended. Some of them, of course, are fair. Some of them are a little bit of an overreaction. And, some of them including, like, is Dailyn Swain already a bust? Are the Chicago Bulls going to trade Norman Powell and Nic Claxton after just signing them or trading for him this offseason? And did Bryson Graham really waste his second-round picks? And also, one of the craziest takes that I've ever seen from anyone before is that Caleb Wilson doesn't need development, like development is somehow some bad thing. We're going to call Facts or Cap on all of these. Plus, we're going to talk about a possible reunion with Daniel Gafford and Caleb Wilson's mindset going into the rest of the summer before training camp. I think it's going to make a lot of Bulls fans proud. We're going to talk about all this plus more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content for today, y'all. So we're playing Facts or Cap. This is one game that we play here which at Chicago Bulls Central. I like having a lot of fun with this one. We're going to have some quick takes on some things. The first one, Dailyn Swain is already a bust. There's a lot of conversation about that in regards to it. You have some Bulls fans that are, oh my God, he's Dalen Terry all of a sudden. And here's the thing. Dailyn Swain's Summer League was objectively bad. There's just no other way around it. Objectively, it was a bad. Like, there is no subjection in regards to that one. Averaging 4.3 points, 5 rebounds across 4 games, shooting 12.9% from the field, and missing every three-point attempt that he had. It's concerning. It's absolutely concerning. But it's way too early to label him a bust. I've seen some bad takes and some fans that just outwardly lie. Like, there was a fan in the comment section, not even in my video, in Jamal's video on Bulls Central, that said something like, well, half the players that have good Summer League games go on to be stars and half the ones that are bad. And that's not true. I actually went through and looked at the last 8 years of the Summer League, and there's literally no truth to that at all. It's somebody who just wanted to type something to have it take. And that's why, that's when I say things like fan brain, that's what I mean. It's like almost that people don't understand that you were able to say, hey, I'm concerned about this, but you don't have to have the overall, the flag planting take culture that people like to live in, where it's like, oh my God, this guy is absolutely this, and I'm basing this off Summer League. Even some people to say that, oh, Summer League is so important for the evaluation. Nobody would tell you that. There's not a single person in any NBA front office position coaching staff that would tell you Summer League, some huge thing that tells you exactly what a player is going to be, are huge for development. It does not happen. When you actually look at how people in the NBA talk about Summer League, they talk about it as exactly what it is. It's a showcase. It's an opportunity to go out there and play, but it's a bad environment with teams that don't usually fit, have not had a lot of practices together, and it's usually a lot of those teams don't actually run any type of semblance of a system either. Here's the thing. It was a bad Summer League for Dailyn Swain, and people can absolutely say that, and you're not wrong for saying, I'm concerned based off what I've seen, but to have this, like, overall try to have this harsh take on this is exactly what it means that Dailyn Swain is going to be, it's false. Because even while his shooting, a big concern there, his defense showed up, the rebounding showed up, the passing still showed up in flashes, right? Not saying that he was like the best defender in Summer League or anything like that. It showed up in flashes, but to try to act like it's this thing where it's like, oh my God, this absolutely means he's going to be a bust. No, he had a bad Summer League. That part is absolute facts. But calling him a bust at this point already, that's nothing but absolute cap right now. It's going to be up to Dailyn Swain to go out there and prove that that's not the case. But to try to say it as if it's like some amazing take or some for sure thing is bad right now. Dailyn Swain has a lot that he actually has to improve, right? He needs to prove that he can play off ball. He's going to have to prove that the jumper and have more confidence. He's going to have to prove that he can be somebody that can isolate and still score when you need him to. He's going to have to make those quicker decisions and show that he can do those things at the NBA level. And at the end of the day, like, even if he does go down to the Windy City Bulls for a while, it does not necessarily mean it's a failure. It may mean, hey, we're going to go down there so you can, and all the scoring can go through you, right? Go out and be that go-to scorer. Get your confidence up in that regard, and then we're going to see what we do with you. But overall, we'll see, right? He doesn't have to prove that he's a finished product right now, even at being 21 years old, but he does have to prove that he's playable. And that's going to be the thing that you have to, that Dailyn Swain has to prove going into training camp and of course, preseason basketball. All right, let's move on to the next one. Facts or cap, the Bulls will trade Norman Powell, Colin Sexton, and Zach Collins. Here's what I'll say, right? I want to be clear on this one. Some Bulls fans are still stuck in the mindset of either trade everybody for picks or take on bad contracts for picks, and the league is showing that you're not handing out first-round picks. And I would say even in the case of Norman Powell, like I saw an article, I can't remember who it was from, that was like, oh, Norman Powell's the perfect trade candidate for the trade deadline. We can go and get Zach LaVine and stack some picks. It's like, here's what I'm going to tell you in regards to this, right? And I'm going to be very real in regards to this one. I expect some overreactions and reactions in the comment section. Norman Powell was an unrestricted free agent, meaning anybody could have offered him money. And guess what? It seems like the only team that he talked to was the Chicago Bulls. Now, could that be that Bryson Graham and them reached out very early in training camp, was like, hey, this is the deal that we're going to give you. We have some things that we need to get in line first, but we're going to come to you in free agency. That's what we're going to do. Could be, right? But you had a player that was coming off his first All-Star appearance, one of his best scoring seasons, playing for a coach in Eric Spoelstra, and he did not have the type of market that teams were knocking down or running over themselves to try to get to him, right? And so now the expectation, I think people heard, well, hey, it's a tradable deal if you want to trade it, and now they've gone right back into that mindset of, oh, we can trade him and stack XYZ. We can move him at the trade deadline. I think people got to calm down in regards to this. Yes, you have flexible contracts. Having flexible contracts does not necessarily mean that you're turning around and looking at the trade deadline to flip a bunch of things. I get it. We're in the dead part of the offseason. A lot of people are looking for content to write about or these type of things. But at the end of the day, Norman Powell is a player that the Bulls need right now. They need Norman Powell because they need somebody who can take that pressure off what they're doing with shooting wise and in the half court offense. They need that. Now, is that to say that a deal can't come open that, the Bulls are like, hey, this X scorer just came available. We can send Norman Powell as an expiring contract or stuff like that. Yeah, possibly there's in regards to that. When you have flexibility in Zach Collins' contract, flexibility in Nic Claxton's contract, flexibility in Norman Powell's contract, but that does not mean that these guys are automatically going to turn around and be trade targets. And like we gotta get out this trade mindset. Almost everything with so many Chicago Bulls fans, the moment we get anything is, oh, but can we trade it? Like, can we trade it? Can we get this if we trade it? Like, and the fact of the matter is, I don't think a lot of people are really looking at where the league currently is right now. The Bulls can be flexible, but they don't have to be flexible to where they're treating everything like a countdown clock to where every veteran needs to be traded at this trade deadline. So I'm going to say this is mostly cap, but there are some possibilities that could be facts in regards to this one. But I do think coming out of this question is that Bulls fans need to rethink what asset accumulation looks like. So many Bulls fans use the blanket statement, oh, we can be like OKC and stack picks, not really looking at the fact that OKC traded star players at the basically the height of their value and stacked a bunch of picks to do that. The Bulls don't have players that have that current value right now, right? The old playbook to rebuild is not the modern playbook to rebuild, especially right now. And you're not seeing hell, you're not seeing stars traded for a bunch of first-round picks, protected or unprotected, right? Of course, there's some of that, but you're not. And also the old mindset that we used to live in of, boom, this trade or this move sets now the value and market for players of this type. We're not even seeing that done anymore, right? We're not seeing all backup centers go for the same amount of money. We saw some backup centers go for $14 million, some go for $5 million, right? So, and it's in regards to that when teams are being more protective of their picks right now because of the new lottery rules, because of those things. Now, eventually it's going to adjust. It's going to ebb and flow. Now, these new lottery rules are only in place for 3 years before a new thing may come in. And so it may be protected for just those 3 years. But at the end of the day, the Bulls need to create functional basketball around its young players so that they can grow and learn in structure. And that's the reality of it. Norman Powell, Nic Claxton, they help evaluate Josh Giddey, Modest Buzelis, Caleb Wilson, Dailyn Swain, Noah Essengay, Leonard Miller. They help with that, right? Trading vets only makes sense if the timing and value align with where you are, and there may not be the case. Rebuilding doesn't mean stripping the roster down until it's only young guys that are playing chaos basketball. It means providing structure and a situation in which those young players can develop correctly, and that's the reality of it. Now, moving on to the next one. This is the wildest take that I've seen in regards to anything, and I had to put it on this episode because, hey, we were doing Facts or Cap. I'm going to put this comment up. And this comment is saying that Caleb Wilson doesn't need development. Not only is that cap, but it's just outwardly dumb. I'm just being 100%. When I say things like fan brain, this is exactly what I mean. Some fans are so caught up in wanting to be right about something that they sound objectively dumb. And that's just the reality of it. Now, we all have those moments where we get caught up in our fandom, so I'm going to say that, but you don't have to get caught up in your fandom and double down and be stupid on top of that, right? You can look at it and say, damn, this Caleb Wilson may be ahead of schedule, XYZ, but if you don't think every NBA player, Michael Jordan needed development. LeBron James needed to develop as a closer. He needed to develop in stepping up in the big moments. He needed to develop as somebody who understands when to facilitate to other people, even though he came into this league facilitating being one of his greatest skills. Development is not a negative word. And that's what it seems like the person who left this comment associated development with somehow meaning that it's some negative thing. It's not that. Every rookie needs development. Even elite prospects need, and then, he went on later in the comment to be like, well, you just need to refine your game and there's some things that you need to, polish off. That's literally the definition of development. It's like some people are so, caught off by the word development like it's a 4-letter word. It's not offensive. Caleb Wilson was great in Summer League, but as we even saw in Summer League, his 3-point shooting dropped. The free throw shooting was bad. The turnovers were bad at times. And areas that he's going to have to improve and develop in is the handle, the strength, right? That's going to have to come down to the free throws, making quicker decisions, reading closeouts, and avoiding turnovers. And that's perfectly fine to say that. Saying he doesn't need development misunderstands exactly what player growth actually is. And so that's the reality of it. Caleb Wilson needing development is not some insult or somehow lowers the ceiling of the player that he is. It's the entire point of having a 19-year-old, now 20-year-old, shout out to Caleb Wilson, player with star-level upside. It's called upside for a reason. Nobody's walking into the league and day one being the best player in the league or on a team. You have to develop in regards to that one. So, yes, Caleb Wilson does have to develop. And there are absolutely things that are going to be on that checklist that him and even he is talking about. We'll talk about that to end the show, that he knows that he needs to develop. And when a player understands that and a fan doesn't, it highlights the fact of why some things are bad. Now, let's get into this last one on Facts or Cap. Bryson Graham wasted the second-round picks. Here's the thing, right? I say this. At pick number 38, I say it wasn't a huge miss. Like, when you look at the players that were left on the board at pick number 38, I'm not counting that as a huge miss. My personal opinion, right? And you have some fans' complaints are, well, they should have taken somebody. Like, there are some fans that legitimately would have shut up their complaints if the Bulls would have just drafted Jalen Sellers at 38 rather than signing him as an undrafted free agent. And that just highlights the fact that this mindset is flawed when you look at it and say that it's a fail that he didn't draft somebody at pick number 38 because you just wanted a name to go there. Now, I'm not saying that's what everybody feels, but that is absolutely what some people have laid. And some people even went on to say that, to say, hey, if they should have just drafted Jalen Sellers there, they should have just drafted Toby Awaka there if they felt that strongly about him. It's like, yeah, but if you have a chance to get them as a two-way instead, then you do that. That's how you use your assets. Right now, where I think that Bryson Graham may have missed an evaluation in the second round isn't the fact of just go ahead and draft somebody at pick number 38. You had number 38, you had number 56, and I think that you should have probably tried to move up. When you see some of the players that went ahead of the Bulls, and one thing about that Bryson Graham even admitted is that once their guys were off the board, they didn't see the value in those guys that were remaining. So whether your guy was Baba Miller, whether it was Ryan Conwell, who went one spot ahead of you, whether it was Malik Thomas, who went at pick number 35, whether it was Isaiah Evans, who was a really, a player that had some tremendous upside at pick number 33. My biggest thing in what Bryson Graham did is, why didn't you try to move up and be more aggressive to get your guy, right? If you were going to sell pick number 56 anyway, basically sell pick number 38, get some pick swaps so you didn't even get a new pick for it. Why not try to package those and move up? And maybe he did make those calls, right? In fairness, he could have made those calls and the team could have been like, no, we don't want nothing that you got, right? So that could have been a possibility. So I am going to say that it is facts in a way, but not the way that some fans are talking about it. Toby Awaka and Jalen Sellers, to me, are not far off from the level of prospects that were there that were left on the board at pick number 38. They just weren't, right? The one guy that you could say at pick number 38 that was on the board that was considered to have a very high upside was Henry Vassar, but his agent was putting out fillers of basically telling teams, do not draft him. He has a team that he wants to go to. Do not draft him. So therefore, I can't really knock them for that either with the details that have come out since then. But I do think that it's a missed opportunity to not be more aggressive when you have 2 second-round picks to move up and try to get these prospects that some people have projected that could have been late first round picks. That's my personal opinion. So I will say that there's facts in regards to that one, but I think that at pick number 38, when you look at where the board did fall at, there are a lot of that, like Toby Walken, Jalen Sellers aren't that far off from those guys. And if one of these guys end up continue to develop, we won't even worry about it. I do think Jalen Sellers and Toby Walken can change that conversation about what the Bulls did in the second round. Sellers has already shown himself to be scoring, energy, defense, and confidence in Summer League. You know, Awaka brings the rebound and physicality, all about being an undersized center. And both players have two-way developmental pieces that are worth monitoring and seeing what you can get out of those guys. That's what you usually look at second-round picks to be, right? So we'll see in regards to that. We'll see what the Bulls do, and we'll see where it ends up shaking out in that regard. But that's it for Facts or Cap. I almost put the Noah Essengate thing in there, but I think we've talked about that ad nauseum at this point, right? But let me know you guys' thoughts on all of the Facts or Cap statements or topics. Let me know that down below. But I want to get into this article that was written over on Bleacher Nation in regards to Daniel Gafford and should the Bulls be interested in potentially going out and pursuing Daniel Gafford? Here's the thing, right? The Mavericks, with them having Derek Lively, Santi Aldama, they re-signed Musa Cisse, I believe is how you pronounce it. They also drafted Morez Johnson, and they have Daniel Gafford there, right? And so when they matched that offer sheet for Musa, a lot of people said, hey, now Daniel Gafford is available, right? And Daniel Gafford would give the Bulls another center that fits the style of play that they like, another rim protector, and pairing Daniel Gafford with Nic Claxton would keep the shot blocking on the floor for a full 48 minutes, and I like that, right? I also think that he's an upgrade over Zach Collins as far as being able to play with a more up-tempo style that the Bulls like to play with as well. But the issue is the contract. 3 years, $54 million left, right? He's in the first year of a 3-year extension. That's where I think this may fall apart for the Bulls, right? I understand the stylistic part of Daniel Gafford's game and how that fits into the Chicago Bulls. But I also think that one thing that Bryson Graham has highlighted with his moves and in how he's talked about this offseason, maintaining flexibility has absolutely been a focus of the Bulls this offseason. And having 3 years, $54 million, when you have Claxton and Powell, both with 2 years remaining on their deals, I do think that that could be a bit of an overpay. Daniel Gafford is better than Zach Collins. I make no mistake about that. When he's on the court, I think he's a better player than Zach Collins, mainly because he's more consistent, right? And he doesn't have, even though he has injury concerns too, but not to the level that Zach Collins has had over the last few years. But I think that Daniel Gafford makes basketball sense. But the question is the roster building wise part of it. And that's where I have my doubts on if that will work out for the Chicago Bulls, right? I'd rather the Bulls are going to take a shot now that the Oklahoma City Thunder have re-signed Isaiah Hartenstein and have a Daymar there. I'd rather make a call to the Oklahoma City Thunder and Thomas Sorber personally. Right now, that call could very well get you turned down. But considering the next two drafts aren't necessarily supposed to be the strongest, I wouldn't be against giving up a first-round pick to try to get Thomas Sorber. I wouldn't be, right? If that's what it takes. Protected, of course, right? Because, again, teams aren't giving up a lot of first-round picks. We shouldn't be one that gives up one for a player that tore his ACL as a rookie either. Use that, monitor it, and do those type of things. But for a player in Thomas Sorber that was drafted 15th overall, I'd be willing to give up a first-round pick in either 2027, 28, make it top. I think what you have to make it now top 15 protected, or is it top 10? There's whatever, right? Do that. I would be open to that. But, and I think it makes more sense to take a shot on a long-term option like that on a player that may be able to turn into your long-term center of the future than going for Gafford with 3 years, $54 million left. But there's just no doubt what Gafford brings when he's on the court. Rim running, shot blocking, vertical spacing, offensive rebounding, the energy that you like, those type of things. He doesn't solve any of the shooting woes for the Chicago Bulls, but he does bring in that style of play that we want at the center. It'll keep you from having to play Jalen Smith at center minutes, which has not been the most effective for him here in Chicago. He's been more effective at the 4, and I like that. And I do think there are some, he can play with Caleb, he can play with Modest, those type of things, but it's just the contract, and it's one that I don't think really the Chicago Bulls need to be trying to take a shot at that part where we stand at right now personally. But you guys can let me know how you feel on that part down below. Would you be interested in Daniel Gafford? As reportedly he is available, but at what price? We don't know that yet. But then I want to end the show on this from Caleb Wilson. Caleb Wilson was interviewed, and he talked about the rest of his summer. What it's going to look like between now, from the Las Vegas Summer League, until training camp opens, and if he's going to take some time off in regards to that one. And he said this: hell no, I'm not taking no time off. I'm about to go back to Chicago and get to work. I've learned everything I need to learn from Summer League. What I need to work on, all I can do is get better at it. October will be here real soon. Time moves fast, and I know it's going to be an even bigger leap when I get into the NBA. Training camp is only 5 days. There's a lot I need to work on. I know my handle needs to get tighter. I have to play off 2 feet more in the paint because of the physicality. I feel like the league is physical for sure, but I feel like it will probably even take a step up from what is going on out here. And just making quicker decisions with the ball, being able to read closeouts, just simple things that I know will occur to me in the real game. I love this mindset from Caleb Wilson. Every time Caleb Wilson talks, he clearly is somebody that loves the game of basketball, but also understands that you have to continually work and get better every single day to get to where you need to get to. And that's what I love about Caleb Wilson. It's the mindset that he has. It's very similar to the competitive mindset that Matas Buzelis has. That's why I think these two guys are going to push each other real hard to get the best out of each other in training camp, in practice, and stuff like that. And I do love the fact that he also said training camp's only 5 days. And it is, right? You don't have the month and a half training camp like you do in the NFL, right? And like I've talked about a lot before that some fans were kind of surprised to hear, teams don't get a lot of practices during the NBA season. You get shoot-arounds. You are really instilling your whole offensive system and philosophies in like 2 weeks. That's it. You have the 5 days of training camp. You have the 2-ish weeks of preseason, and that's it. You're on the ground running. Now, that doesn't mean you're not iterating over the course of that time. You're not adding some wrinkles, adding some plays, adding some stuff like that. But like the time to truly just work, practice, and focus on implementing your system, getting players used to your system, you don't have the same runway that you have in the NFL to get that done, or in hockey either, right? It's just you don't have that. So when it comes down to it now, is that I love hearing that Caleb Wilson is in the lab working, and he's going to be in the lab working because that's what we know about Gids. That's what we know about Matas Buzelis. Hell, we've seen Leonard Miller, Norman Powell already working out. They were in Vegas working out with these guys. It's a great thing when you have people with the right mindset because you know they're not going to rest on their laurels. And we've had players in Chicago over the last few years. I'm not going to name names. Y'all know who there is that rested on laurels. That didn't take the game as seriously and passionately as they needed to. And it reflected in their game and the lack of forward progress in their game. You're not going to have that. And I also think that Caleb Wilson's going to be the type to, hey, come out and work with me. Trey, come out and work with me in this. I need a point guard to work with me. Gids, you're back in the country. Let's get some workouts together. Let's go with the shooting coach. Let's go. I want to learn from that. Like, I want us to get our chemistry together. That is how you build a culture. That is how, when you hit the ground running in the regular season, and therefore maybe you're able to be a little bit better than what people expect you to be. And so we'll see how that works for this Bulls team overall, but I love the mindset of Caleb Wilson. I love that this guy is a worker, man. I love that part of it. But I just wanted to end the show on that because it fills me with so much pride to see somebody in a Bulls jersey who, A, wanted to be here, but is willing to put in the work, right? So that's what it's going to be. But Facts or Cap gave us a lot, to talk about today. Let us know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Blow up that comment section with your thoughts and feelings on all of the Facts or Caps topics or anything in regards to the Chicago Bulls. Sound off down below in that comment section. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell if you never want to miss an episode or an upload. You can follow us at Bull Central Pod on every social media platform. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of Breaks